A single mom was at the hospital with her baby for a routine checkup. Everything seemed normal, until disaster struck. While waiting for her turn, Baka suddenly felt a sharp pain in her stomach and nearly doubled over. Everyone in the waiting room immediately turned to stare. Yep, the dreaded stomach emergency had arrived at the worst possible moment. The problem, she had her baby strapped to her back. She knew she couldn't ignore it much longer, but she also couldn't exactly bring the baby into this situation. Frantically looking around for help, she spotted a young man sitting quietly in the corner. To her, he looked less like a stranger and more like a miracle sent from heaven. Without giving him a chance to answer, she rushed over, asked him to watch the baby for a minute, unbuckled the child, plopped the baby into his arms, and sprinted toward the bathroom like her life depended on it. Now, this guy wasn't just any random young man. He was a wealthy heir who probably had more experience handling business contracts than babies. He held the child like someone carrying a suspicious package, and immediately asked a nearby woman how he was supposed to do it properly. Instead of helping, the woman scolded him. Before he could recover from that embarrassment, a nurse walked over, assumed he was the baby's father, and told him it was time for the appointment. What was he supposed to do? Explain that he'd been unexpectedly recruited into babysitting duty 30 seconds ago? With no better option, he awkwardly carried the baby into the examination room. Things only got worse. The moment he saw the doctor holding a needle, panic took over. He begged the doctor to be careful and not hurt the baby. When the doctor stepped closer, he became even more suspicious, wondering whether the medicine was actually safe. The doctor patiently explained that everything was perfectly normal. That didn't help. He immediately started asking about side effects, then more side effects, then even more side effects. By this point, both the doctor and nurse looked completely exhausted. Luckily, Baka finally returned from the bathroom feeling much better. The nurse spotted her and smiled. "You have such a wonderful husband. He's a great father." Baka blinked. "Who are you talking about?" Now it was the nurse and doctor's turn to be confused. Wait, he wasn't the father. After the misunderstanding was cleared up, Baka took her baby back and thanked him for helping. During the short encounter, he had actually grown attached to the baby. But the moment he looked at Baka, he switched right back to his usual cold personality and walked away. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't it. While driving home, he noticed Baka walking alone with a baby. The weather was chilly, and he worried the child might catch a cold. Against his better judgment, he pulled over and offered them a ride, a decision he would almost immediately regret. Not long after they got in, a mysterious smell began spreading through the car. He frowned. "What is that smell?" Baka hesitated, then admitted the baby had just done what babies do best. The smell grew stronger. His soul nearly left his body. Normally he'd roll down every window immediately, but he was worried the baby might get cold, so he suffered in silence. Barely. Somehow, he managed to get them home. As he drove away, he silently prayed he'd never see Baka again. Unfortunately for him, fate had already laughed at that idea. Their lives were only getting started. Meet H. Jun, the heir to a billion-dollar company. After returning to Korea, he was determined to expand his grandfather's hotel empire and make it even bigger. The problem was that his schedule was so packed, he barely had time to exercise, and it showed. One day at the gym, lifting even a few kilograms looked like a life-threatening challenge. Watching nearby was Baka, who worked part-time jobs non-stop just to make ends meet. As H. Jun struggled with the weights and looked seconds away from collapsing, Baka casually walked over and placed the weights back onto the rack. Then she offered some helpful advice. She explained that he needed to use strength from his core and demonstrated the proper technique. She was genuinely trying to help. H. Jun did not see it that way. Instead, he felt like she was making fun of him. Before he could respond, the manager noticed the interaction and fired Baka on the spot. Fortunately, she quickly found another job at a golf course. Unfortunately, during an inspection tour, she accidentally launched a golf ball directly into H. Jun's foot. The universe clearly enjoyed messing with this man. The moment she spotted him, she tried sneaking away. No chance. H. Jun caught her immediately and demanded to know what she was doing there. Fed up, Baka fired back. She was simply trying to earn money for baby formula. Why was he acting like it was his business? What? Was he the owner of the hotel or something? To her shock, he calmly answered yes. Not believing him, she rolled her eyes. Then he informed her that he was the chairman's grandson. Suddenly, the confidence disappeared from her face. A chill ran down her spine. Meanwhile, H. Jun thought he'd finally escaped her. Wrong again. The very next morning, he discovered that Baka had become his sister-in-law's secretary. At that moment, he felt a chill run down his own spine. Baka happily greeted him. H. Jun simply sighed. His life was over. Not long afterward, Baka got into a heated argument with the boss's daughter. As luck would have it, H. Jun walked by just in time to witness the chaos. At first, he wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. but knowing how explosive his sister's temper could be, he reluctantly stepped in. Later, he pulled Baka aside and gave her a lecture. Where did she get the confidence to pull her boss's hair? And if she was going to fight, couldn't she at least win? Why did she end up looking worse than the other person? While he was talking, he suddenly noticed blood coming from her nose. Baka casually wiped it away with her hand. Jun couldn't believe what he was seeing. He pulled out his handkerchief and gently cleaned the blood himself. For a moment, the atmosphere became strangely awkward. Realizing it, Jun quickly escaped. His sister wasn't done making Baka miserable, though. Using her authority, she forced Baka to run errands all day long. By evening, Baka's feet were scraped, bruised, and bleeding. She ended up walking home barefoot. Jun happened to see her. Pretending not to care, he drove past, then immediately stopped, because apparently his heart refused to cooperate with his brain. Watching her limp along, he assumed she'd been drinking and asked if he was drunk. Baka looked at him like he'd lost his mind. She barely had enough time to eat, let alone drink. Then he noticed her injured feet. Concern immediately replaced annoyance. Worried she'd get an infection, he grabbed his sneakers and offered them to her. At first she refused. Eventually she accepted. As Jun knelt down to tie the shoes, Baka quickly pulled away. Startled, he stumbled backward. Embarrassed, he asked whether she was making fun of him. She insisted she wasn't. Then he asked why she was letting him tie her shoes. Realizing how awkward it looked, she apologized. Carefully, he tied them for her. The shoes were a little too big, but after adjusting them, they fit well enough. Trying to hide his embarrassment, Jun joked that he nearly passed out because of how strong her foot odor was. To his surprise, Baka believed him. Immediately, she lifted her foot and smelled it herself. The sight was so innocent and ridiculous that Jun couldn't help smiling. What a goofball. Concerned about her condition, he insisted on driving her home. During the ride, Baka fell asleep. When they arrived, Jun carefully unbuckled her seatbelt. At that exact moment, their lips accidentally brushed. Baka's eyes shot open. Jun practically launched himself backward. Flustered beyond belief, he immediately explained that it was an accident, and that he was only trying to help. Meanwhile, Baka remained surprisingly calm. She didn't seem bothered at all. Instead, she simply thanked him for driving her home. Jun, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about the accidental kiss. Baka brushed it off completely. To her, it was just an accident. No big deal. Ironically, she was handling it like an adult while Jun was having the emotional stability of a middle schooler. Embarrassed, he awkwardly mumbled that he should leave. Back at his mansion, things got even worse. While standing in front of the bathroom sink, preparing to brush his teeth, he suddenly remembered the kiss again, and then remembered how little Baka cared. The man was falling apart. I'm so uncomfortable I could die. Meanwhile, Baka was back home happily playing with her baby, and thinking about absolutely none of this. The next morning, Jun stepped outside and immediately saw Baka washing his car. The second their eyes met, he became incredibly uncomfortable. So naturally, he turned around and escaped, leaving Baka standing there completely confused. Later, Jun arrived at the office, and was horrified to find Baka there too. Acting on pure survival instinct, he repeatedly pressed the elevator button, hoping the doors would close before she got inside. Nice try. Baka made it. Now trapped together in a tiny elevator, Jun looked like a guilty kid who had broken something expensive. He retreated into a corner and avoided eye contact at all costs. Baka quickly noticed he was acting weird. He was talking to her while staring in completely different directions. Clearly, he was still embarrassed about the previous night. Trying to make him feel better, she teased him and said he shouldn't overthink the accident. After all, she had already forgotten about it. There was no reason for him to feel guilty. Jun immediately insisted that he wasn't thinking about it at all, and he definitely didn't do anything wrong, and he absolutely didn't owe her an apology, which, of course, sounded exactly like something a person would say when they're thinking about it non-stop. The tension in the elevator wasn't over yet. Baka fired back, telling Jun that he wasn't exactly her ideal type either. Ouch. That comment landed directly on Jun's very fragile ego. Before the argument could escalate into a full-blown elevator showdown, other employees stepped inside, forcing both of them to drop it. But Jun wasn't ready to let it go. Back in his office, he couldn't stop replaying the moment in his head. What did she mean he wasn't her type? Who says that? And more importantly, did she say it just to annoy him? The next day, the boss's daughter watched employees rushing around preparing invitations for an upcoming event. Immediately, she called Baka, who had just gotten home after a long day of work, and ordered her back to the office. Not tomorrow, not later. Right now. She dumped the entire invitation project on Baka and demanded she finish everything alone if she wanted to keep her job. With no other choice, Baka brought her baby to work and started the mountain of overtime. Later that evening, Jun was preparing to leave when he heard a familiar little noise. He turned around and spotted the baby. Instantly, his personality changed. Without even realizing it, he slipped into full dad mode. He smiled and talked to the baby, commenting on how cute she looked and how chubby she'd gotten. Then reality hit. Wait, what was he doing? He immediately straightened up and returned to his usual CEO expression, as if nothing had happened. Still, the baby worked her magic. The tiny matchmaker managed to soften the atmosphere between them. Before leaving, June even helped Baka finish some of the invitations so she could get home earlier. Unfortunately, someone else noticed. Jun's mother saw how comfortable her son had become around Baka and decided it was time to teach the single mom a lesson. Her plan was simple and incredibly cruel. She instructed Baka to retrieve a valuable painting from the family museum and deliver it to her. Sounds harmless, right? Not even close. Before Baka left the museum, Jun's mother secretly activated the security system. Completely unaware of the setup, Baka accidentally triggered the alarms while trying to leave. Instantly, loud sirens filled the building. The sudden noise frightened the baby, who immediately burst into tears. Meanwhile, the mastermind behind the whole thing calmly informed security guards that a thief was stealing from the museum. Within minutes, security arrived. They found Baka holding a priceless painting late at night, and immediately began questioning her. Why was she there? What was she doing with the artwork? And why shouldn't they assume she was stealing it? The situation escalated quickly. They ordered her not to move and warned that if she made any sudden movements, they would respond accordingly. Panicked, Baka tried to explain. She told them she had her baby strapped to her back. The guards ordered her to put down the painting and raise her hands immediately. At the exact same time, Jun happened to find Baka's purse and phone back at the office. At first, he hesitated. Then he remembered all the baby supplies inside and decided to bring them to her home. On the way, he noticed multiple police vehicles heading toward his family's museum. Something felt wrong, very wrong. Moments later, just as police were preparing to arrest Baka for theft, Jun arrived. Without questioning her, without demanding explanations, without hesitation, he immediately stepped between her and the accusations. After verifying her identity, the police released her. Even though nobody else believed her story, Baka desperately tried to explain to Jun that she hadn't stolen anything. She told him the chairman had instructed her to deliver the painting. The only problem was that she couldn't find the note containing the delivery address. Then Jun said something she never expected. He told her he believed her, completely, no questions asked. His reason was simple. No mother would bring her baby along to commit a theft. Those words hit Baka harder than she expected. For the first time that night, someone trusted her. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. She tried holding them back, failed, and the tears started falling. Seeing her struggle emotionally affected Jun too. Wanting to give her some privacy, he volunteered to watch the baby. That way she could finally let herself cry. Inside the car, he gently reassured her. Nobody else was around. The car was soundproof. She could cry as much as she wanted. For once, she didn't have to be strong. And that was all it took. Baka finally broke down. She poured out everything she'd been carrying. The loneliness, the exhaustion, the overwhelming challenges of raising a child completely on her own. After a while, she finally calmed down. Naturally, Jun couldn't resist teasing her. He jokingly asked how she managed to cry so much that her nose practically became a waterfall. Baka seriously explained that she'd wiped it carefully. Her completely sincere answer caught him off guard. He couldn't help laughing. That simple evening unexpectedly brought them closer together. Then, just as they were preparing to leave, Jun smelled something very familiar. A smell he unfortunately knew all too well. Baka instantly turned red with embarrassment. She wanted to get out of the car and change the baby's diaper outside. Jun refused. He worried the baby would get cold. Instead, he told her to stay in the car and handle it there. Look at him. From billionaire heir to diaper emergency supervisor. The next day at work, Baka thanked Jun for everything he had done. She promised she would repay him someday. But Jun, a man who already had everything money could buy, simply waved it off. There was nothing she could possibly do for him, or so he thought. Because fate was preparing a very funny lesson. That same day, he ran into his ex-girlfriend and her fiancé in the hotel lobby. The couple was planning to hold their wedding at his hotel. The moment his ex saw him, she immediately started taking shots at him. According to her, the reason he still wasn't married was obvious. He couldn't get over her. Before Jun could respond, a familiar figure appeared. Bersika. To him, she looked like an angel descending from heaven. A very chaotic angel. Determined to get revenge on his ex, Jun asked Baka for a favor. A big favor. He wanted her to pretend to be his fiancée, just for one day, and if she truly wanted to repay him, now was the perfect opportunity. After a quick makeover, Baka emerged looking absolutely stunning. Jun nearly forgot how to speak. Was this seriously the same woman he'd been arguing with? Meanwhile, Baka adapted to the role instantly, maybe a little too well. Her playful way of speaking and acting affectionate left H-Jun increasingly flustered. Seeing danger ahead, he quickly established one rule. If anyone asks a question you can't answer, don't make something up. Just let me handle it. Then he pulled out a ring and asked her to wear it. To everyone's surprise, it fit perfectly. Hand in hand, they entered together looking every bit like a real couple. The ex-girlfriend was stunned. Apparently H-Jun having a gorgeous fiancé wasn't part of her plans. Things got worse when her own fiancé openly complimented Baka's beauty. The ex looked ready to explode. Desperate to embarrass them, she asked how they had met. Baka smoothly redirected the question to H-Jun. Without missing a beat, he claimed it had been love at first sight. He said he had worked hard to win Baka over. Not wanting to be outdone, the ex proudly announced that she'd started dating her current fiancé only 10 days after breaking up with H-Jun. 10 days. That's it. The couple somehow presented this information as if it were romantic. H-Jun and Baka exchanged speechless looks, then Baka struck back. She intentionally flashed the engagement ring on her finger, reclaiming control of the conversation. After the food arrived, the performance continued. The fake couple played their roles perfectly, but the ex still wasn't done. She decided to attack Baka's background. She mocked her family situation and suggested that H-Jun's wealthy relatives would never approve of someone like her. H-Jun instantly became furious and told her to watch her mouth. But before he could continue, Baka unexpectedly made her next move. At first, H-Jun thought she was experiencing stomach pain. Then the ex's fiancé suddenly understood. No, he said, she's pregnant. Just like that, Baka escalated the game to expert level. Apparently, she had decided to make H-Jun a father overnight. After dinner, H-Jun couldn't hide his frustration. He complained that she turned him into a single dad, without warning. Baka calmly pointed out that it was the fastest way to defeat his ex and prove he could move on happily. As annoying as it was, she had a point. H-Jun reluctantly admitted it. To make the act believable, Baka even pretended she couldn't eat because of morning sickness. Watching her commitment to the performance made H-Jun laugh. That mischievous side of her was becoming harder and harder to ignore. Later, after returning home, H-Jun found himself staring at the engagement ring and thinking about Baka a lot. What he didn't realize was that somewhere along the way, she had already begun taking over his heart. Back at work, Baka often brought her child with her. After coworkers learned about her limited education, they began looking down on her. They mocked her constantly. According to them, studying hard was pointless nowadays. Education didn't matter. Connections mattered. Especially if you happened to be dating someone powerful. Baka quietly agreed on the surface, trying not to show how much their comments hurt. That evening, frustrated and emotionally exhausted, she decided to drown her sorrows in alcohol. Elsewhere, H-Jun had just finished dinner with friends. When he noticed Baka nearby, he overheard coworkers making fun of her. Seeing how much she'd been drinking, he immediately became concerned. He was about to step in and defend her, then something unexpected happened. Baka transformed into a one-woman action movie. Using nothing but her fists, she started teaching the gossiping coworkers a lesson. H-Jun stood there in shock. 5 opponents, 1 Baka, and somehow she was winning. Terrified, the women scattered and ran away. Victory achieved. Moments later, the drunken warrior collapsed onto the ground. Only then did she finally relax. When H-Jun approached, she wrapped her arms around him. Looking up with blurry eyes, she complained that he was late. Did he have any idea how long she'd been waiting? In her drunken state, she had mistaken him for her husband. She leaned against him like a wife who'd spent the whole day getting bullied. For a moment, H-Jun's expression softened. Quietly, he whispered, "I'm sorry I'm late." Soon afterward, he brought her home. Unfortunately, several neighbors spotted them. The gossip radar activated immediately. The neighbors quickly helped carry Baka inside. Watching the scene unfold, H-Jun felt strangely irritated. Why was he becoming so attached to her? The neighbors settled Baka into bed and made sure she was comfortable. The next morning, Baka woke up and learned that H-Jun had been the one who brought her home. Feeling grateful, she immediately rushed outside to wash his car as a way of thanking him. And the moment H-Jun saw her, the chaos between them continued. Jun made one thing very clear. He told Baka never to do something that reckless again. Then, despite acting annoyed, he handed her a cup of honey water he had prepared ahead of time because he knew she'd be dealing with a brutal hangover after everything she drank the night before. Baka looked at him suspiciously. Was this some kind of carrot-and-stick routine? First the lecture, then the kindness. H-Jun immediately got defensive. If you don't want it, then don't drink it. Of course, that only made it more obvious that he cared. And even though he was pretending otherwise, Baka couldn't help smiling at the concern hidden behind his grumpy attitude. Unfortunately, news about the drunken incident traveled fast. Very fast. Before long, H-Jun's mother heard all about it and wasted no time using it as ammunition against Baka. She called her in and scolded her harshly. Baka could only lower her head and endure it. Later, Jun's mother brought the issue directly to him and started criticizing Baka's character. This time, though Jun wasn't interested in hearing it, he immediately defended her. He explained that Baka's co-workers were the ones who had started the trouble in the first place. Then he pointed out something else. He had personally seen her cleaning the front entrance before coming into work. Those weren't tasks a company employee should be doing. Someone was clearly taking advantage of her. Time and time again, Jun found himself becoming Baka's shield whenever she needed protection. As they were leaving, Baka suddenly lost her balance and stumbled forward. Instinctively, Jun caught her. The moment he grabbed her hands, he noticed how cold they were in the winter weather. Without hesitation, he handed her his gloves, a simple gesture, but one that warmed Baka's heart far more than the gloves warmed her hands. That night, Jun watched her struggling to carry her baby around on her back. And that's when an idea formed. A very specific idea. A handsome, wealthy, ridiculously eligible billionaire had officially fallen for a single mother. And Christmas was right around the corner. For the holiday season, Jun organized a special company Christmas event. Then he immediately abused his CEO privileges. Just a little, using his authority, he ordered Baka to come into the office on her day off. Naturally, she was not thrilled. She couldn't understand why she was being dragged into work during Christmas. What she didn't know was that Jun had secretly planned a surprise just for her. Behind the scenes, he arranged for every raffle prize to be replaced with baby strollers. Every, single and one person. Meanwhile, a confused and slightly annoyed Baka arrived at the event. Jun secretly instructed Santa Claus to make absolutely sure the woman carrying a baby received a raffle ticket. Mission accepted. A little while later, Santa approached Baka. She drew a ticket. When Santa unfolded it, she nervously asked if she'd won anything. To her complete shock, Santa announced that she'd won a stroller. Not just any stroller, the exact stroller she'd been dreaming about but could never afford. Her face instantly lit up. At that exact moment, Jun conveniently happened to walk by, totally coincidentally, definitely not planned at all. Baka couldn't contain her excitement. She happily told him she never imagined she'd own a stroller like this, because it was so expensive. In fact, she was starting to wonder if he was dreaming. What she didn't realize was that every detail had been orchestrated by Jun. This was her baby's very first stroller, and watching her happiness made every effort worth it. Trying to play it cool, Jun suggested they take it for a test drive. For quality control purposes. The three of them headed to a nearby park and took the stroller for a spin. Jun then casually claimed he was just taking a break from work. Totally normal behavior for a CEO, not suspicious at all. Afterward, they stopped by a restaurant. As usual, Jun spent most of his time playing with the baby. Anyone watching would have assumed he was already the father. At one point, Baka casually suggested that he should find someone to marry someday. She told him he'd make a wonderful father. Strangely enough, those words didn't make him happy. Instead, they irritated him. Jun immediately told her that his love life was his business, and she didn't need to worry about it. Baka blinked in confusion. Where had that reaction come from? Just then, an employee approached and offered to take a family picture. Baka immediately started to decline. Jun immediately accepted. He told her to cooperate because the photo would become a wonderful keepsake for the baby. And the truth, deep down, he'd already started seeing himself as part of that little family. Together, they posed for a picture that looked surprisingly natural, like a real family. Later, while taking Baka home, they ran into one of her neighbors. The neighbor had also bought a gift for the baby, another stroller. Normally, that wouldn't be a problem, but for some reason Jun suddenly felt threatened. Apparently, stroller competition was now a thing. Back at home, Jun found himself pacing around his room. He couldn't stop worrying about one specific possibility. What if Baka sold the stroller he had worked so hard to get her? The thought bothered him enough that he finally called her. Trying to sound casual, he asked which stroller she planned to keep. The moment Baka said she intended to keep the stroller she'd won, Jun quietly relaxed. A huge weight lifted off his shoulders. Then Baka kept talking, and immediately ruined his mood. She explained that she planned to return the stroller she had won because it was technically used and wouldn't sell for much. The neighbor's stroller, however, was brand new. Returning that one would result in no financial loss. For a brief second, Jun nearly short-circuited, then he realized what she meant. The stroller she was keeping was his stroller. Instant relief. Crisis averted. A few days later, Jun was scheduled to leave on a business trip. Watching him prepare to go unexpectedly stirred painful memories for Baka. Her late husband had also left on a business trip once, and never returned. The memory hit her hard. Without realizing it, tears gathered in her eyes. Then she reached out and grabbed Jun's hand. She quietly asked if he could stay. Jun didn't fully understand why she seemed so emotional. Still, he gently reassured her. He promised he would come back safely. Later, aboard the plane, Jun sat staring at the family photo they had taken together. A small smile appeared on his face. What he didn't know was that trouble was already brewing back home. The moment he left, his mother made her move. Determined to get rid of Baka once and for all, she created another trap. This time, she arranged for Baka to deliver a valuable painting. The vehicle provided for the delivery contained a hidden tracking device. Everything was carefully planned. While driving, another vehicle suddenly swerved into Baka's lane. Startled and confused, she quickly pulled over to inspect the damage. The other driver immediately apologized and offered compensation. While Baka's attention was distracted, someone quietly stole the painting. When she realized it was missing, panic exploded. Where's the painting? What happened? What is going on? Back at headquarters, Jun's grandfather learned what had happened. He was furious. Without hesitation, he decided to fire Baka. Meanwhile, Jun's mother loudly accused Baka of stealing the painting herself. The accusation felt unbearable. Baka repeatedly insisted she was innocent. I really didn't do it. But nobody listened. At that same moment, Jun had just arrived at his hotel destination. He called Baka to let her know he had arrived safely. The instant she heard his voice, her emotions overwhelmed her. Tears filled her eyes again, carrying it in her voice. Jun immediately asked what was wrong. But Baka refused to burden him. She quickly claimed she was fine, just tired. Then she ended the call before he could ask any more questions. Not long afterward, Baka found a new job working at a car wash. Meanwhile, Jun kept sending messages and waiting for replies. But something had changed. Baka became distant, cold. The gap between their worlds suddenly felt larger than ever. Realizing something wasn't right, Jun threw himself into work. He pushed harder, worked longer hours, and finished his project ahead of schedule so he could return home sooner. After several exhausting days, he finally returned. The first thing he learned was that Baka had been fired. His aunt informed him immediately. Jun didn't waste a second. Suspecting his mother's involvement, he confronted her directly. He even warned that if she had anything to do with it, he would take action. Then he went searching for Baka. Through her neighbor, he discovered where she was working. When they finally saw each other again, it felt as if something important had been missing the entire time they were apart. Looking at her current situation broke his heart. For once, he wasn't interested in arguing. He just wanted to get her away from there. The questions poured out before he could stop them. What are you doing? Why didn't you tell me what happened? Why aren't you answering your phone? Why aren't you replying to my messages? What are you doing to yourself? You're acting like an idiot. If I'd known, I never would have let you go through this. Will you come with me? Baka stood there silently listening. Then she answered coldly. She had work to do, and if he had nothing else to say, he should leave. She didn't need his pity. She could take care of herself. Those words followed Jun all the way back to the office. No matter what he did, he couldn't focus, because somewhere during all their time together, he had fallen completely in love with her. And now he realized he might lose his chance before ever telling her. Unable to sit still any longer, he went back to see her. This time, he found her working overtime alone in the freezing cold. Then suddenly a nearby pipe burst. Water exploded everywhere. Without thinking, Jun rushed forward and shielded her, and in that moment, he finally said the words he'd been holding back. I can't keep pretending I don't see this. I can't do it anymore. I like you, Baka. Everything froze. Baka couldn't believe what she had just heard. Seeing her shock, Jun repeated himself, then he took it even further. He admitted that he wanted to become the baby's father. He wanted to take care of both of them, together. Faced with such an honest confession, Baka stood motionless for several seconds. Then she quietly told him to leave. She convinced herself he was only feeling sorry for her. She had no idea how much courage it had taken for Jun to confess. No idea how long he'd struggled with those feelings. Before leaving, he asked her to seriously think about what he'd said. But Baka stubbornly rejected the possibility. She insisted she had no feelings for him. Jun wasn't convinced. Then why were you crying? Why do you only act like that around me? Still, Baka denied everything. Again, and again. Watching her reject both him and her own emotions left Jun deeply disappointed. But not defeated, not even close. Looking at the gifts he'd bought for the baby, he made a decision. If she wouldn't come to him, he'd simply work harder. Operation Win Baka's heart had officially begun. Back at home, Baka sat beside her child and replayed Jun's confession over and over. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Eventually, she casually brought up the subject to her neighbor, or at least she tried to make it sound casual. Pretending she was talking about a friend, she described the situation. Her neighbor listened carefully, then immediately delivered the verdict. If this friend started crying uncontrollably after hearing a man's voice, she was obviously in love with him. Baka quickly panicked. She denied everything. Immediately, "It's not my friend. It's not me. It's definitely not me." Her neighbor wasn't buying it for a second. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Jun was lying awake in the middle of the night, frustrated, confused, completely unable to sleep. Finally, he grabbed his phone and called Baka. If she wasn't going to face her feelings, then somebody had to say something, and apparently that somebody was him. Jun's voice was packed with equal parts frustration and heartbreak. He kept talking, and talking, and talking. Meanwhile, Baka's response to his emotional midnight speech was a yawn, a very big yawn. Trying to defend his wounded pride, Jun reminded her that he wasn't exactly lacking options. "I'm not trying to brag, but there are plenty of women who'd love to date me." Unfortunately for him, the longer he complained, the sleepier Baka became. Within minutes, she completely surrendered to exhaustion. Curled up beside her baby, she drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, Jun was still talking. "Why aren't you saying anything but a pause? Wait, another pause. Are you sleeping?" The next day, Jun arrived at the car wash with a mission. He was determined to win Baka back. Technically, he came to get his car washed. But after arriving, he suddenly decided he'd wash it himself. Because apparently being a billionaire CEO wasn't enough. Now he was volunteering for car wash duty too. While helping her, he promised he would find the missing painting and clear her name so she could get her job back. True to his word, he returned to the office and immediately instructed his assistant to gather information about the stolen artwork. Then he took things a step further. Pretending to be the buyer, he contacted the art gallery connected to the painting. After confirming several details, he headed there personally. When he arrived, he saw something shocking. His mother was leaving the gallery, and she was carrying the painting. Well, that explained a lot. Jun quickly contacted Baka and told her he had found the missing painting. However, he conveniently left out one tiny detail. The person responsible was his own mother. Baka was overwhelmed with relief. At the same time, she was completely confused. Jun smiled. "I told you I'd find it." Then he added something far more dangerous. "Maybe you should think about my feelings a little too." Back in the car, Jun attempted to revisit the confession he'd made the night before. Sensing exactly where the conversation was headed, Baka immediately activated her favorite defense mechanism. She pretended to fall asleep. Again, unfortunately for her, traffic wasn't helping. The road was completely jammed. That evening, Jun was supposed to attend an important meeting with a major client. However, his aunt was lobbying hard to secure a management position for her own son, so Jun's cousin ended up attending instead. Baka felt guilty. She couldn't shake the feeling that she'd caused him to miss something important. Oddly enough, Jun didn't seem bothered at all. In fact, he appeared perfectly happy spending extra time driving around with her. The realization only made Baka more embarrassed. She practically wanted the earth to open up and swallow her whole. Seeing her acting strange, Jun asked if he was okay. "I'm fine. I'm really fine. Just go." After she hurried away, Jun sat there confused. What is wrong with her? "I was just asking if she was okay." Despite all the feelings bubbling beneath the surface, their relationship remained stuck in the same awkward place. Meanwhile, Baka had another problem. She needed to work and couldn't bring her child. So she asked her neighbor to babysit. Simple enough, except this neighbor was, not exactly reliable. While out with the baby, the neighbor became distracted by a supermarket promotion. There was a raffle, and apparently that was all it took. Excited, she temporarily set the baby aside while signing up. Afterward, she happily rushed home to tell her husband about her good fortune. Her husband listened, then asked one simple question: "What about the baby?" Silence. The baby summer instant panic. "What did you do? Where did you leave the baby?" The neighbor's face went completely pale. She tried desperately to remember, but she couldn't. Not exactly the answer anyone wanted. Soon afterward, Baka received the devastating call. Her baby was missing. The moment Jun learned what happened, he rushed to her side. Inside the car, Baka was falling apart. Through tears, she admitted she couldn't live without her child. Jun immediately comforted her. They would find the baby, no matter what. Arriving at the supermarket, they met the terrified neighbor. Apologizing repeatedly, she explained that she remembered taking the baby to the daycare area and giving the staff some cookies. And after that, everything became a blur. Baka felt like her world was collapsing, but Jun remained calm. Carefully observing the situation, he noticed a sticker attached to the neighbor's sleeve. That small clue gave him an idea. Immediately, he grabbed Baka and rushed back toward the supermarket. Desperate to find her baby, Baka wasn't paying attention to her surroundings. At one point, she stepped directly into danger. A vehicle was heading toward her. Seeing what was about to happen, Jun reacted instantly. He shoved her out of harm's way. The impact left him injured, but even then, he ignored his own condition. His only concern was finding the baby. Thankfully, the moment they entered the supermarket, Baka heard the sound she'd been praying for, her baby's cries. Following the noise, they found several women gathered around the child. The second Baka saw her baby, it felt like her heart started beating normally again. The nightmare was over, and Jun felt just as relieved. He had been every bit as worried as she was. Watching the reunion, several nearby women couldn't help feeling jealous. From their perspective, this looked like the sweetest family ever. Afterward, Baka insisted on taking Jun to the doctor because of his injury. She was genuinely worried. The doctor examined him and smiled. "Your husband is going to be just fine." Baka immediately tried to correct the misunderstanding. But before she could, Jun casually smirked. "My wife worries too much." It was a harmless misunderstanding, yet somehow Jun enjoyed every second of it. Wanting to thank him properly, Baka invited him out for barbecue. The invitation sparked a brilliant idea in Jun's head, or at least what he considered brilliant. Pretending his arm was seriously injured, he claimed he couldn't move it. Baka immediately started helping him eat. For a few glorious moments, Jun lived his dream. Then reality struck. After only 2 bites, he forgot to continue acting. His supposedly injured arm started moving perfectly fine. Busted. If your arm works that well, feed yourself. Baka wasn't fooled anymore. Mission failed. Later, Jun gave Baka some sleeping medication to help her rest better. Once again, his small acts of kindness make her heart flutter. But Baka was still trying to protect herself emotionally. Pulling out a newspaper article, she showed him a story about his impressive academic achievements and prestigious university background. In her eyes, someone that accomplished deserved someone far better than her. When they arrived at her home, Jun quietly asked a question. "What if I'm not as amazing as you think?" Baka thought for a moment. Then she smiled. Everyone carries their own struggles. No matter what happened, she believed he was a good person. Those words stayed with him. Not long afterward, Jun's grandfather discovered something explosive. His diploma wasn't real. Furious, the old man refused to listen to any explanations. For Jun, it felt like his entire world had collapsed. That night, he drowned his frustration in alcohol. Once again, Baka was the only person who truly believed there was more to the story. She listened while Jun finally opened up about his past. Years earlier, while studying overseas, he had been robbed. During the incident, his best friend died protecting him. The trauma shattered him. Afterward, he couldn't focus on school, couldn't move forward, couldn't heal. It took years just to escape the darkness that followed. Baka understood. Instead of judging him, she encouraged him. She told him to face the truth bravely. With her support, Jun returned home and confessed everything to his grandfather. This time, the old man finally listened. Eventually, he agreed to give Jun another chance to inherit the family business. But there was one condition. A very big condition. He had to return overseas and earn a legitimate business degree from Harvard. Suddenly, Jun found himself trapped between 2 futures. The future he'd worked toward his entire life, and the woman he had come to treasure. "I need time to think." His mother couldn't believe what she was hearing. Think about what is. To her, the answer was obvious. Determined to secure her son's future, the wealthy matriarch did something completely unexpected. She knelt in front of Baka, then she begged for Jun. Baka immediately understood, and she made a promise. She would never become an obstacle to his future. That night, Jun went to see her. He confessed that he was willing to give up studying abroad if it meant staying with her. The words shattered Baka's heart, because she had already made her decision, for his sake, not hers. Forcing herself to sound cold, she told him her heart still belonged to her late husband. There was no room left for anyone else, especially not him. She insisted that all she felt was gratitude, not love. Every word felt like a knife. Heartbroken, Jun finally decided to let go, at least on the surface. Meanwhile, Baka hid her own feelings. She couldn't allow herself to selfishly destroy his future, so she buried the pain and threw herself into work. Unfortunately, life had one more disaster waiting. Late one night, the heater in her room suddenly caught fire. Flames spread rapidly. Desperately, Baka tried putting the fire out herself. Then an explosion shook the room. The terrifying sound caused her to collapse to the floor. Elsewhere, Jun was on his way to the airport. Yet no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop thinking about Baka. Her words echoed endlessly in his mind. If someone holds your hand during your hardest moments, make sure they hold it 10 more times. The memory wouldn't let him go. He couldn't leave, not yet. He had to see her one last time. Turning around, he rushed back, but when he arrived, his heart nearly stopped. Baka's apartment building was engulfed in flames. She was rushed to the hospital. Jun was terrified. One thought kept repeating in his head. What if he'd arrived too late? Thankfully, Baka regained consciousness shortly afterward. The first thing she noticed was H-Jun's suitcase, and the realization hit immediately. He hadn't left because of her. H-Jun smiled. Congratulations. Now you're responsible for me. I'm not asking for much. Just stay with me. This time, Baka couldn't hide anymore. She looked directly at him and finally told the truth. Actually, I've thought about it a lot. It would be really nice if you were always by my side. For a moment, H-Jun thought he had misheard. He'd waited forever to hear those words, and finally, the wait was over. Unfortunately, happiness lasted approximately 5 seconds, because H-Jun's grandfather suddenly appeared, and he was furious. The grandson who was supposed to be overseas was standing right there in front of him. The reason was obvious. A woman. Without saying a word, the old man kicked H-Jun out. Later, Baka asked what he planned to do now. H-Jun shrugged. Maybe he'd wander around for a while, or maybe she could take care of him. If she wanted. Taking the idea completely seriously, Baka asked how much money he needed every month. H-Jun pretended to think, my situation is pretty rough. 10 million won a month should be enough. Baka nearly had a heart attack. Her annual salary wasn't even close to that amount. Forget 1 month. She couldn't earn that much in an entire year. Completely stunned, she started wondering what kind of lifestyle required spending that much money every month. Seeing her panic, H-Jun finally burst out laughing. He had been joking the whole time, and her priceless reaction made it absolutely worth it. Despite everything that had happened, H-Jun wasn't panicking about his future. In fact, he already had a plan. He wanted to start his own business. The only problem, he didn't exactly have a place to live, so naturally, he decided to move in with Baka. Honestly, he didn't care about losing his status, his position, or his wealth anymore. As far as he was concerned, being with the woman he loved was enough. For the first time in a long time, he felt content. With winter still hanging around, H-Jun worried constantly about Baka and the baby getting sick. After thinking it over, he decided the first thing they needed was a car. A practical decision. At least that was his excuse. Baka told him they were doing just fine without one. Then, while helping him straighten his tie, she unknowingly gave him the opportunity he'd been waiting for. H-Jun leaned in and kissed her. Immediately Baka jumped back. What are you doing? The baby's right here. Without missing a beat, H-Jun turned toward the baby and planted a kiss there too. There, on. Now you've gotten a kiss too. Don't be jealous of your mom. Somehow, his ridiculous logic actually made him look proud of himself. For a brief moment, it felt like their little family could finally enjoy some peace. But peace never lasts long in dramas. That night, while helping Baka organize some of the baby's belongings, H-Jun stumbled across something unexpected. Hidden inside the sole of her late husband's shoe was a USB drive, naturally Curiosity 1. When he plugged it in, everything changed. The files contained financial records proving that his mother had embezzled company funds. Even worse, the evidence connected Baka's husband's death to his own mother's actions. The discovery hit H-Jun like a freight train. He wanted to tell Baka the truth immediately. But he couldn't stop thinking about what would happen afterward. What would it do to their future? What would it do to her? Unable to process everything, he turned to alcohol. Again, and the next morning, H-Jun went straight to his mother. Part of him hoped she would finally admit what she'd done and ask Baka for forgiveness. Instead, she shocked him. Without remorse, she explained that she'd done everything for him. She wanted him to become a company executive. She even mentioned that she'd given Baka's husband a large amount of money. What she didn't know was that he later died in an accident connected to everything that followed. Listening to her cold and stubborn attitude made H-Jun furious. He stormed out. At that moment, he realized he couldn't simply continue living as if nothing had happened. Caught between love and family, he felt completely lost. Trying to clear his head, he spent the day shopping for baby supplies. Then he found himself imagining the future, watching the child grow, seeing her turn 4 years old, experiencing all the moments he'd secretly hoped to share. Later, he waited for Baka at a bus stop and took her shopping for spring clothes. One dress in particular caught his attention, a soft yellow dress. The moment she tried it on, he couldn't take his eyes off her. It's beautiful. It really suits you. Meanwhile, H-Jun's mother had her own problems. Feeling trapped, she went to H-Jun's grandfather and asked for help. The old man wasn't interested. Not even a little. He told her to deal with the consequences herself. In other words, you made this mess. Now clean it up. Facing pressure from both her son and her father-in-law, she began sinking deeper into despair. Meanwhile, after settling some unfinished business, H-Jun brought the baby to visit Baka at work. The sight of their little family together was unexpectedly witnessed by his mother, and it hit her hard. Very hard. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. While she was emotionally falling apart, her son was happily playing father to Baka's child. The realization hurt more than she expected. That evening, H-Jun's mother called Baka. Surprisingly, she didn't reveal the truth. She didn't mention the evidence. She didn't mention her guilt. Instead, she simply asked Baka to take good care of H-Jun from now on. The conversation felt strange, very strange. Baka immediately sensed something wasn't right. Later, she asked H-Jun directly whether something had happened, but he quickly changed the subject. His reaction only made her more suspicious. Unable to let it go, she decided to investigate on her own. That night, she contacted the CEO's girlfriend and went looking for answers. What she found was terrifying. Inside the room was a suicide note, and beside it sat an empty bottle of sleeping pills. H-Jun's mother had attempted to end her life. Thankfully, she was discovered in time and rushed to the hospital. When she regained consciousness, she learned one important fact. Baka had saved her. That realization pierced through years of pride and stubbornness. For the first time, guilt finally overwhelmed her. Soon afterward, she went to see Baka and confessed everything. Every lie, every mistake, every selfish decision. She admitted that her actions had directly contributed to the tragic death of Baka's husband. Then she did something no one expected. She turned herself in. Walking into a police station, she confessed her crimes and accepted responsibility. Meanwhile, the lawyer who had helped cover everything up realized the authorities were closing in. The police were already searching for him. Cornered and desperate, he snapped and decided to take revenge on Baka. One day, he spotted her and accelerated his vehicle straight toward her. The attack happened in seconds. Baka barely had time to react, but H-Jun saw the danger. Without hesitation, he shoved her out of the way and took the full impact himself. Everything happened so fast. 1 second he was standing beside her, the next, he was lying injured on the ground. He was rushed to the hospital immediately. Baka was devastated. The guilt was unbearable. All she could do was pray that he would survive, pray that he would wake up. Hours passed, then came surgery. Finally, the doctors delivered some good news. The operation had been successful. His life was no longer in danger, but there was still a problem. H-Jun remained in a coma. Even so, the news brought Baka tremendous relief. At least he was alive. Through tears, she apologized to the chairman. She blamed herself for everything. After all, H-Jun had gotten hurt saving her. The chairman looked at the young woman standing before him, heartbroken, terrified, and clearly in love with his grandson. For the first time, he couldn't bring himself to blame her. Baka quietly asked for permission to stay by H-Jun's side and care for him. The chairman looked at the woman his grandson had risked his life to protect. Then he simply nodded and walked away. From that day forward, Baka rarely left H-Jun's bedside. She stayed with him, talked to him, cared for him, and waited. Meanwhile, H-Jun's mother received a reduced sentence after confessing her crimes. Following her release, she visited her son. Standing beside his hospital bed, she finally broke down. "I was so stubborn. Please forgive me. Wake up, sweetheart." Seeing Baka still there beside him touched her deeply. Baka promised that she wouldn't leave. No matter what happened, she would stay by H-Jun's side for the rest of her life. Hearing those words left his mother speechless. All she could do was thank her sincerely. Not long afterward, Baka received an urgent call from the hospital. H-Jun had finally awakened. Without wasting a second, she rushed there. The moment she arrived, she called out to him, but there was no response. Nothing. Panic immediately took over. She called his name again. Still nothing. A terrible possibility crossed her mind. "Don't tell me you don't recognize me." H-Jun remained silent. Baka's anxiety skyrocketed. Not knowing what else to do, she prepared to call for a doctor. Then suddenly, H-Jun stopped her. Completely deadpan, he asked, "When did I say I forgot you?" The man had been teasing her. Again, instantly, Baka burst into tears. After everything they had endured, every misunderstanding, every sacrifice, every heartbreak, they were finally together again. Life slowly returned to normal. Baka went back to working at the hotel. Every day after work, she visited the hospital and took H-Jun outside for walks during his recovery. Meanwhile, H-Jun's mother stepped up and helped care for the baby. Months passed. Gradually, things began falling into place. Eventually, Baka moved out of her tiny apartment and into H-Jun's home. For the first time in a very long while, she and her child had a place they could truly call home. Their story wasn't perfect. There would still be challenges ahead. There always are. But they had already survived the hardest parts together. And as long as they kept moving forward with hope, courage, and a little stubborn optimism, a bright future was waiting for them.